Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we are going to create this real-time strategy inspired building from my latest time-lapse video because that's what I do lately. Sometimes when you really like my longer videos, I take out a small part and do a short tutorial like this. So I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, please don't forget to leave that like, and if you're new around here and want to learn more, hit that subscribe. So let's jump into Blender, and now I'll just select the cube and the light, press X and delete, and I'll press Shift A, add a mesh and a plane that will serve as a base of our building. The reason why I deleted the cube, because I would need to, move it in the edit mode up so the origin point is in the bottom. I might as well just delete it and, extrude a new one. But here I want to scale it up first, so let's go into the edit mode. We tap, scale it up, and then press E to extrude the shape. Something like this will be enough. And now press 2 for edge select here, and hold Alt and Control and click one of the edges, and you will see it will select all of these around. And let's press Ctrl B and just create the bevel and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel like this. And now press 3 for face select. You can always switch these here. This is 1, 2, 3. So let's press 3, press G, then Z, and move this down slightly like this. And now we can just press X and delete this face, we don't need it anymore, and probably the bottom one as well. So let's just select it, press X and delete faces. Now again we'll press 2 and alt click this loop all around, press Shift D to duplicate, right click to release in place, and now press P and separate the selection. So they'll separate it into a new object right here, so we can tab out, select that new object, right click and convert it to curve. And in the curve settings geometry section, we can increase the bevel depth and it will create nice object like this very easily. Now let's just reduce the resolution to something like 2, because we'll add subdivision modifier anyway. And now let's select this part again, tap into the edit mode, and again we can enable X-ray view, alt click this loop and press Shift D to duplicate, and again P and separate the selection. So we basically did the same thing here. I will now tab out and select that new object, tab back in and press A to select all, and E then Z to extrude on Z axis up like this. And now press F to fill and press Ctrl B to bevel. I will create the bevel like this. If you want a little bit better geometry, first of all let's press G then Z, move this down slightly like this. And I want to use subdivision modifier later, so let's disable the X-ray view. We can press 1 for vertex select or click here. If you're just starting Blender and you have trouble following all the tutorials, make sure to check out my courses as well, where in addition to all the step-by-step instructions, you also get full in-depth explanation of all the steps and all the tools, and you get to learn everything from simple low poly design all the way to full character illustration, textured environments, even a little bit of sculpting and hard surface modeling. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. And now we'll select these pair of vertices, and you can always press J to join, and they'll basically create a much nicer geometry in place if we join these pairs of vertices and get rid of that large angle. We still have some angle right here, but you can get rid of that as well by connecting these edges right here. So basically this will convert everything to quads very easily. And now if we tab out and press Ctrl 1 to add subdivision surface modifier, you can see the geometry is quite nice. So we can right click and shade smooth. Now let's select this part, press Ctrl 1. By the way, that's the shortcut for subdivision modifier. So if you go to the modifiers right here, you will see the subdivision modifier is added right there. So we can just right click and shade smooth here. And here we'll do the same thing, but here if you want, you can do this manually. Just like this is the same thing again. So let's shade this smooth, and now let's create an entrance for this building. So I will tap into the edit mode here, press 2 for edge select, select this one and hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. So I'm just in the middle of the wall. Now I'll tab out, let's press Shift A and let's add a plane again. Tap into the edit mode and first let's rotate it, so R then Y and 90 to rotate 90 degrees, and let's confirm. And now since this is 2 meters, by default we can press G then Z and 1 to move this up so it's placed directly on the origin point. And now press S then Y and scale it to shape it a little bit like a door. And now we can tab out and press S to scale it proportionally towards that origin point like this, and press Ctrl A and apply that scale. Now tap into the edit mode and we can go 1 for vertex select, select these two and press Ctrl Shift B this time. they'll enable vertex bevel, and let's create a shape like this. Now we can just tab out and duplicate this, so press Shift D, tab into the edit mode. Now we can press 2 for edge select, select the one on the bottom, press X and delete edges. So now press A to select all, and E then X to extrude this along the X-axis, just like this. And now we can press A to select all, Alt E, and extrude along normals, outside, like this. And we can press S to enable even scaling, and do something like this. Now you can always go and enable face orientation here in the overlays, and you can see we have flipped normals there, so we can press A and Shift N. And now if you check this, the normals are correct, so we only need to do that right here as well, and everything should be just fine. Now here I want to add a bevel modifier as well, so let's go generate bevel modifier, increase the segments to 2 and reduce the amount like this. And now we can press Ctrl 1 to add subdivision surface modifier, right click and shade smooth, so it's nice and smooth here. Now select this part right here, press G then X and just move it outside, so we have something like a door there. Something like this should be enough. Now let's hold Shift S, snap cursor to world origin, and let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane, and let's create some kind of a backdrop for the building. So tap into the edit mode, press S and scale it up somewhere here. And now we'll make this part longer here. So select this edge, press G then Y and move it somewhere here. And now we can press 1 for vertex select, press A and Ctrl Shift B to create this kind of vertex bevel. And now press A and E to extrude this down like this, and press X and delete faces, we don't need those at the bottom. And now tab out and let's add the bevel modifier here. Let's increase the number of segments to, let's say, 3. I think this will work nicely. And we can go to the shading and enable harden normals, right click and shade smooth. And this will be the nice backdrop for the building. Now let's create the satellite dish on top of this. So let's select the roof here, tap into the edit mode, press 3, select this face right here and hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it again. Tab out and let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane. Tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down a little bit. Now press S, then Y and scale it like this. And now let's press Ctrl R and increase number of cuts to 2, and let's left click to confirm and right click to release. And now we'll separate these. So press 3 for face select, select this one in the middle and press P and separate the selection. Now we can press A and extrude these up. Press 2, select these edges by holding Shift and press Ctrl B and bevel them out like that. I'm trying to create something that would like enable the dish to kind of position and extend. So let's tab out and let's select this separated part right there. Tab into the edit mode, press E to extrude a similar height, but here I want to bevel all of these. So press 2 and hold Alt and Control and select this edge right here. That will select again all of these around, and press Ctrl B and create the bevel like this. And we can press C to clamp. So now we can go all the way and it will don't go beyond. But now we have double vertices there, so we can press A and press M and merge by distance, and you will see we removed 4 vertices. So now the only thing left is to move the origin point to the correct position, and we can enable X-ray view, press 1 for vertex select. And I know I want to move the origin point in between these 4 because that will create, you know, a nice pivot point right here to move this up and down. So let's hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it, and now tab out, right click and set origin to 3D cursor. So now if we press R then Y, this rotates nicely, but leave it like this for now. Let's disable the X-ray view and let's create the dish. So let's tab out, press 2 for edge select, select this one, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Tab out and let's press Shift A and we'll add a circle. Now we can modify this to something like 12 vertices because we'll subdivide it anyway. Tab into the edit mode and press S to scale it down like this. Now we can press 1 so we can better see the vertices, and let's press 1 for front view and E then Z to extrude this up, and then S to scale it up like this. And now we'll add some more geometry here. So let's press Ctrl R and create a cut here, right click to release, and we'll just press S to make it larger, and G then Z to move it down. And now to smooth it out a little bit, we can press Ctrl B to bevel, but reduce the number of cuts to something like 2 or 3. That should be enough, I think. Okay, and now just Alt click this loop in the middle, press F to fill. And now to make things really easy, let's tab out. First of all, let's make this a little bit smaller. I think it's too large, and then S then Z to scale it up so it's a little bit deeper. Now press Ctrl A and apply the scale. And here in the modifiers, we can just add solidify modifier to add some depth to it. Let's go negative direction like this. And then we can add the bevel modifier to add some supporting loops. Let's reduce the amount. And finally, we can add that subdivision surface to make it nice and smooth with those supporting edges. Right click and shade smooth, and you can adjust the levels of the viewport and the sharpness of this using the bevel modifier. Okay, and now let's press Shift A and let's add another circle. Tab into the edit mode. Let's look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad. Enable X-ray view, and let's scale this down like this. Press G then Z, move this up. Now E then Z and extrude, and then S to scale it down. Now Shift S and cursor to select it again, and now tab out and let's press Shift A and let's add like a UV sphere, but I think this is too dense, so let's do 16 and 8 here and scale it down. Right click and shade smooth. And now let's disable the X-ray again. We can shade smooth this as well. Hold Shift, select both of these and parent them to the dish. Press Ctrl P and parent to object. And now we can select the dish, parent it here, and this one to those like that. And basically here we can parent everything to the bottom. So we now have a building which can be moved with just one object. And here we parented this in a way which allows us to move it this way around, and we can move this up as well. But before we do, let's hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it, and I want to do like a circular object that would allow us to rotate this around. So let's press Shift A, add a circle, tap into the edit mode, press S, scale it up a little bit, press E then Z, move it up, then S to scale and F to fill. And now we can just add the bevel modifier here as well, increase segments, and press Ctrl 1 to add that subdivision surface modifier here, right click, shade smooth, and basically now just click twice through until you select the objects at the bottom, press G then Z and move this up. Maybe we can make it a little bit smaller. And now we can parent this as well, so hold Shift, select this one, press Ctrl P and parent, and now let's parent this to the roof. So now we are able to just rotate this and move this around like that. Now these two need some bevel and some subdivision as well, so we can just select them by holding Shift, select this one as last, and just go and transfer the bevel modifier and transfer the subdivision modifier like this. Right click, shade smooth, and it will work nicely. And now I always try to kind of put in some value, additional value, and show you some tips and tricks. So let's create a quick fence here. So I'll Shift and right click here to move the cursor, and let's press Shift A and add a plane. Now tab into the edit mode, press R, then Y and 90 degrees. Confirm, press G, then 1 to move this up. And now I will press S, then Y and 2 to scale this twice. Okay, well, let's confirm. And now I'll tab out and scale it down like this. Okay, and Control A and apply the scale. So first of all, I want to separate something that I can use as, you know, fence pole. So I will tab into the edit mode, go to edge select by pressing 2, select these two edges and just press P and separate the selection. You will see them separated here. So now we can just select the whole face, press I to inset a little bit, and now press 3 for face select and Control I to invert the selection, and we can press X and delete faces. So we have something like this here. And since we scale this twice, on the length, we can just press Ctrl R to create a loop cut right here and right click to release, and now we have two perfect squares, and we can just press A to select all and right click and subdivide, and it will always create perfect squares. So I think something like this should be okay, and now we can press Ctrl F, or you can go 3 for face select and right click, and you can poke faces, and now we can invoke the same menu by right clicking and choose triangles to quads, and they'll get rid of those horizontal and vertical lines, and we have something like this here, and we can reuse this to create a fence using curves. So again, just a quick tip to have some means to create geometry that can look a little bit more complicated on the outside when in fact it's just a few clicks and geometry editing. So let's press 2 for edge select, and we can just alt click, and let's hold Alt and Shift now and add all of these to the selection, and press P and separate them. And now let's alt click here and then Alt and Shift and do the same thing on the other side, and now press P and separate the selection. And now let's hold Alt and select the other loop and press P and separate the selection. So we have 3 new objects. So now we can tab out, select this original object by clicking here in between somewhere, press X and delete, and you can see we're left with only the edges. So now let's adjust this a little bit. I will tab into the edit mode for this one, press 1 for vertex select, select the corner verts, and press Ctrl Shift B to enable that vertex bevel and do something like this. Okay, now right click and convert to curve, and again in the curve settings I will increase the bevel depth here, and now right click and shade smooth. Now let's select, for example, these here, right click, convert to curve, and again we'll extrude this, and now let's select these, right click, convert to curve, and here we don't need to adjust this, we can just hold Shift, select these and press Ctrl J to join them into a single object. So why did I do it like this and didn't like convert it from the get-go? Because before these were connected, these were the same vertices for the whole mesh. So if you converted this to curve, you would get like weird joints and bends. But now these are always twice. So if you move this, you can see these just intersect, but they are not connected. So yeah, that's the reason basically. And now we can just select this part right here, right click, convert to curve, and increase the bevel depth here as well, so we have some nice fence poles, and enable fill caps. And again, we'll right click and shade smooth for everything. Now another thing, if you want to easily move this around without parenting, you can just merge everything together. You can select all of these with these as last and press Ctrl J to join, and they'll make them thinner, but you can always go into the edit mode. Now select one of these vertices here, press L to select linked, and here you can press Alt S to manually adjust the thickness within the same curve. So we can now select these poles and press Alt S and make them thicker like this. And now if you tab out, this is a single object that you can reuse and move around. Don't forget to fill caps again. And now basically we can just look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad, press G, move this here, and Alt D to duplicate, R and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. And we have some nice fences here, quick and easy with just a little bit of curve modeling. Now I want to create a little bit of an animation here, so let's press 0 for camera view, let's press N for the side panel, and here we'll go view settings and enable camera to view. So now if you move your view with your standard viewport controls, you're moving camera as well. So let's find some nice position like this, for example, and we can now disable this. Don't forget to do that, because then if you would move, the camera would move as well again. Now let's hold Shift S, reset the cursor to world origin. Let's press Shift A, add a plane, and just scale it up here quite a lot, and we'll move this down a little bit. So press G then Z and move it down so it still kind of intersects with this part. And now I want to create a camera animation, that will kind of loop around, and then I want to loop this dish circling around. So first of all, let's press Shift A and let's add an empty plane axis, and we don't see them, so we can just make them quite large like this. And now basically we can select the camera, hold Shift, select the empty, and press Ctrl and P and parent to object. So now whatever we do with this, it will move the camera. So let's go back to the camera view by pressing 0 on a numpad, and with the empty selected, we can just right click and insert single keyframe for the Z rotation. And now here in the timeline view, let's modify this to something like 120 frames. And we can press Shift D and duplicate this frame to 121. And now let's move to, let's say, 40. And let's press R, then Z, and move this here. Right click and insert single keyframe. And then let's move to 80. And let's go to the other side. Right click and insert single keyframe. So now if you press Ctrl and Tab here in the timeline, you will get the curve for the animation. Let's press A and then period on a numpad to focus, or you can just hold Ctrl and middle mouse button to scale up and down and left and right to kind of match your animation curve. And then I want to edit this, so select this handle right here and move it so from the start of the animation it just starts moving. There's no easing like this, something like that. And here I want to do the same thing. And now we'll just move these around so we create a little bit smoother curve like this. But the important thing is that they should connect here with a similar angle. So imagine this curve ends at an angle like this, so it should continue just like that. So now this should give us this nice fluent movement around, and we can go ahead and in the output settings switch the frame rate to something like 30, so we have a nice and smooth animation. And now let's create some rotation here. So select this object right here, go to frame 1, right click and insert single keyframe right there. And now we can go to frame 121 and let's just do plus 720 here, and let's confirm. It will do the calculation for us, so right click and insert single keyframe. And here you can see we need to kind of scale this down to see the whole animation, but this is easing, so anytime the animation starts, this would kind of go and then slow down. We want to move this linearly, so let's press A here to select all keyframes, press T and choose interpolation to linear, and you will see how the animation curve changes. So this will be basically still the same constant movement right there. And I think it's a little bit too much with the wiggle movement, so either we need to make this animation longer or we need to reduce the angles for the camera rotation. So I will do just that and basically just press S then Y and scale this down so the extremes are not so high. Much better in my opinion. So right now let's set up some quick render. I will press Ctrl B and limit the preview only to camera bounce, and here in the render settings I'll switch to cycles and enable GPU denoising and GPU for my final render denoising. And for the render I think 128 samples should be quite okay. And now let's press Shift A and let's add an area light, press G then Z, move this up and make it larger. So there'll be kind of like a overhead light here, and let's do something like 500 and we'll see how that looks. Probably will be too strong, so let's go to rendered preview. Yeah, that's quite okay I think. So let's maybe make it a little bit larger so we have these nice soft shadows here, and then we'll press G then Shift Z to move this on X and Y axis and move it slightly back here so we don't get so much light in the front. And now let's create some backlight. So press Shift D, duplicate this, press G then Z, move it down, and G then Shift Z to move it back here. And you can a little bit tilt it a little bit like this by pressing R twice and make this smaller and much stronger. And now basically you can just go wild and, you know, adjust the building however you want. You can add some details, like for example barrels here, or I don't know, some equipment, whatever you like. Here I will just add some basic materials. So let's create a new one. I think something like an army green like this will look nicely. A little bit more roughness. Here we can do something with a full metallic value, maybe a little bit darker, and here something like that should work as well, or maybe that green but with a different shade, something like this with a little bit more roughness. Okay, here the same metallic material should work nicely, same as here. And for the dish, here maybe we can go again a little bit green and metal. Okay, so really quick material setup, just to, you know, to do final render and showcase the model. Okay, and here this could be something like a concrete gray color like that. And now we'll adjust the lights and the background. So with the background selected, let's create a new material and let's do something that will work nicely with the theme here. Maybe something like this with a full roughness. And now the backdrop color can be a little bit warmer to create that nice golden hour backlight here. And maybe now the background can be like something between blue and green. And yeah, let's create some light from the side here. So again, we can duplicate this one, press Shift Z and move it only on X and Y axis like this. Let's make it smaller and move it up and down, and you can see how it adds reflections and of course a little bit more definition to your building. Okay, something like this. And maybe this green is a little bit too vibrant, so I will reduce the saturation a little bit. And let's make this a little bit darker. Oh yeah, that's the one. So now we can add a little bit more highlights if you want. So for example, you can always add a point light here in the back. So, you know, like it's like there's a lamp or something, and you can like really ramp this up to create some nice highlights and focus and create some interesting point of interest there in the back. Or maybe you can try to, you know, make this look like this is an open door. So you can create a new material and do an emission, you know, add some strength and some color. Yeah, I really like this. So yeah, just go ahead and try different versions of colors and colored lights. And then in the world settings, you can always, you know, add some ambience around and color it as well. So you'll see how these shadows, you know, get that color tint, and it nicely blends those colors together. And finally, in the render settings, color management, you can add a little bit more contrast here with the contrast settings. And if it's a little bit too dark, then add an exposure. And I will darken the background a little bit because it's now too bright, and go back and adjust this exposure for the rest of the building and play with the overall contrast. But I think this looks quite nice. Maybe this is a little bit too saturated, so let's try more subtle values, and maybe this needs to go a little bit darker. Okay, and so yeah, that's the quick tutorial for today. I really hope you enjoyed this one. And again, if you did, please leave that like. And if you want to learn more like this, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.